It is crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So we're going to dive into the biggest storylines, the key matchups, and give some predictions for Chicago Bears versus San Francisco 49ers with our friends from Locked On 49ers, Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another Locked On Podcast Network crossover season here. Week 1, 49ers and Bears. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker of Locked On 49ers with Lorin Cox of Locked On Bears. Psyched for this matchup, Week 1. Justin Fields revenge game, Dante Pettis revenge game, Tashawn Gibson revenge game. I think Tashawn Gibson might get called up from the practice squad from this one. Lorin, appreciate you jumping on with us. It's always a lot of fun, and I'm pumped for another crossover here on this Thursday, and I'm going to kick it off to you. What's going on with the Bears? What's the biggest story here coming into Week 1 in this game?
Yeah, it's nothing secret. It's nothing surprising. It's what are the Bears going to be able to do around Justin Fields? Are they going to be able to give him the pass protection necessary for him to see the field and be able to throw and have open receivers downfield? Will the receivers be able to get open on their own? Will the team put Justin Fields in the best position to be successful? Will they use his strengths the way that they say they're going to use his strengths? Will they improve in the ways that Matt Nagy's offense was really trying to force him as more of a square peg round hole type of situation? And can they put together enough of a cast around him to feel like, okay, this offense can show what it can do? Or will there be 49ers pass rushers in the backfield all game? Will the Bears not be able to run the ball? Will they not have guys open downfield? What will this Bears team look like? We still have a lot of questions that need to be answered there.
Lorin, I definitely have a lot of questions because I thought Justin Fields was the most talented quarterback in that class. And I was very confused why was he wasn't the number 1 overall pick, whatever. We did hear that it was between Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars. But after that, the Jets didn't really consider him at all. It was all Zach Wilson. The San Francisco 49ers, they kind of threw his name out there, but for the most part, it was between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. So for a guy who is extremely talented, other teams didn't get him. Teams like Carolina Panthers, they're probably looking at themselves like, why didn't we go out and get this kid? I do want to ask, how has the progression with him been, the growth from his first start last year where he got sacked 9 times and they had a net passing yard of 1, and his last preseason game where we saw him complete 14 out of 16 passes for 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, we're seeing Justin Fields really, I think, accelerate mentally, that he's getting through his progressions more quickly. Sometimes in the preseason, almost it felt like too quickly getting to the check down, but it still felt like progress from last season where maybe he was trying to hold on to that first read a little bit longer to see, could he get open? Could it be the big play? If I just wait that extra second, maybe I can get the ball in there and it'll open up, and just it never does. And then he ends up holding onto the ball too long. And then the pocket presence becomes an issue. And sometimes the footwork was an issue as well, where he's not necessarily getting his feet stepping in the direction of the throw or lined up properly with his body to have the most accurate pass, especially when it's just sort of like quick timing underneath throws. And I thought, especially in that last preseason game, the footwork looked a lot better. The processing looks a lot quicker. He's still honing down the pocket presence on how early do you bail from the pocket and really take off with your legs? When can you afford to just, you step up but stay in the pocket and not completely bail out? That's a thing that I feel like takes more live game action to work through, that you can't fully simulate a live pocket feel as well in practice when guys can't actually hit you. You're wearing this, the orange jerseys in Chicago, and it's not like live bullets flying, but we are seeing development in the areas that we needed to see that growth, but we'll see how that comes together in an actual regular season game.
I don't know if you've heard, but the San Francisco 49ers have this young quarterback by the name of Trey Lance, and obviously he is very inexperienced. When you talk about Justin Fields, do you think it was mostly just getting the live reps? Now, again, this is a guy who was awesome at Ohio State, and he had some of his holding on to the ball too long issues and whatnot. I'm a firm believer of what can you teach, what can't you teach. You can't teach his athletic ability. You can't teach that arm strength. Just what he can really do to create off script and all those things, how he just challenges opposing defenses. But the things that he needs to learn, do you think that those things have gotten better? And again, when we say gotten better, obviously you take preseason with kind of a grain of salt, but just in the sense of kind of where he's headed. But is it as simple as saying he's just gotten better with the reps?
Yeah, you've seen a team like actually suited to him now. And that's such a big difference from last season when he spent the entire preseason and the offseason and the training camp as the backup quarterback. He did not get starting reps. He was not throwing to his wide receivers. He was really just truly the backup. And so when he got thrown in the regular season last season, he didn't really have much real preparation. He still had to get used to throwing to his top wide receivers and get used to how that offensive line was going to function. And there was a lot more learning on the fly. And I think because this season, he's really been able to be the guy and work with these receivers and this offense and really kind of take over the reins, there's a certain comfort and confidence that he's bringing that can set him up to do more of that skill set they talked about that are things that are difficult to teach. Like the things I saw last season is like he was I always described it as he made the difficult things look easy and the easy things look difficult. And I would much rather have to try and teach him the easier things. And I think we're starting to, but still very early, starting to see that progress come along.
That's a great way to put that. I love that. He made the difficult things look easy and the easy things look difficult. So it's going to be fun to watch the development there. And of course, on the other side, it's the biggest storyline with the 49ers too, is Trey Lance. How's he going to look this year? And it's important for Trey Lance to come out hot because not only does he have Jimmy Garoppolo behind him, but it's because of the guy on the other side in Justin Fields, the guy that the 49ers did not draft. And the 49ers not only, and I said this when they moved up to number 3 to draft Trey Lance, not only did they have to be right and get a good player, and Trey Lance had to be good, but he kind of had to be better than Justin Fields and Mac Jones, or else that'll just be second guessed, and it already is second guessed, and probably will never stop being second guessed into eternity until Trey Lance shows up and he's like, I'm better than all these guys. And that was an amazing choice and an amazing move by the San Francisco 49ers. And even by halftime of week 1, if the 49ers are trailing and Justin Fields is maybe playing better than Trey Lance, it's already going to be just like insane for Croc and I on social media watching this game and the folks that hit us up for the podcast. So that's what makes this game so intriguing to me, is not only the young quarterback's development, which will be huge storylines, I think, for the entire 2022 season with those 5 first-round quarterbacks plus Davis Mills and how those quarterbacks look in year 2, but to have 2 of those quarterbacks matching up with the 49ers and the Bears in week 1 is going to be so much fun. And of course, we'll make our predictions a little bit later. We'll talk about those matchups and what specifically I think the 49ers and Bears are going to be doing on each side of the ball. But the biggest storyline is not a secret in this football game. It is the second-year quarterbacks, and I can't wait for it.
Are you expecting the offense to look very different? Obviously, it's still the Shanahan scheme, but the idea, right, that you transition to Trey Lance is because he's supposed to open things up a little bit more with his much more dynamic skill set, but it's also his first game first game of the season, his first game really sort of taking that helm. So I guess, how do you expect them to balance that sort of like wanting to simplify things for young quarterback, but also wanting to play with this fun toy that they drafted to be that thing to take them to the next level?
I think part of it is Kyle Shanahan still filling out Trey Lance and, what does he do well? What doesn't he do well? I think he has more of an understanding of where Trey Lance is right now in his development. As it pertains to, will the offense look different? I think one thing is extremely clear, whether it's in the preseason or even kind of last year, the 49ers offense with Jimmy Garoppolo is just more condensed. For better or for worse, whatever that is, it's just more condensed. More so, definitely inside the numbers, over the middle, a lot of really quick timing routes, and you still kind of get quick in timing. But with Trey Lance, he definitely has a habit right now, and almost probably like Justin Fields, right? Just holding on to the ball a tick too long, and maybe with more reps, he'll progressively get better with that as his career goes on. But you have seen him work definitely a totally different area of the field than Jimmy Garoppolo. They've taken more deep shots with him. I feel like between the Texans game and what we saw in preseason, that's more deep shots than we saw from Jimmy Garoppolo in the entire season. So you see them trying to stretch the field more and definitely throw outside the numbers a lot more. And that's still an area that Trey Lance is working on, but you see them definitely making that more of a point of emphasis than throwing over the middle. And we've seen Trey Lance do that here and there, but definitely not to the extent of how they did with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, just with how the offense will look, it'll definitely look a little different, but I do believe that some of the concepts are still the same.
And to add to that, I do think even if Kyle Shanahan was calling all the same plays, it was going to look different because Trey Lance, as Croc puts it, has those aggressive eyes. And he's going to be making different reads than Garoppolo anyway. And he might even pass up that first little slant if there's a tiny window there where Garoppolo would force that thing in there. And he's looking for that next big thing and maybe extend and make a bigger play. So I think it's going to look a lot different, even if the actual structure of the offense isn't really a ton different. But of course, when you have a quarterback like Lance, I think things will get called different. So who knows? I think it's going to look much more different than even maybe some 49ers fans expect. Next, guys, we've got to talk about the key matchups that will win this game for either the 49ers or the Bears. And of course, make our predictions for week 1 next. But first, let's talk about our newest sponsors at Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget, really, across the entire United States, Canada, and the UK. And I know we've got some global listeners here on Locked On Bears and Locked On 49ers, a couple of storied franchises. So over the globe, you can find Turo and get yourself a car when you need one. Book a spacious SUV or a minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've heard about before you go and make that purchase. Make sure it fits in your everyday lifestyle. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions do apply. So ditch those boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers and Locked On Bears your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're checking out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show and Locked On NFL Draft daily as well. And of course, Lorin's all over the place. I mean, we are all pulling duty here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Keys to victory here are not necessarily keys to victory, more like key matchups. Like what? Let's start with the most important thing. Lorin, from your vantage point, you're in the Bears coaching meetings, offense or defense. You look at the 49ers. Is there something that you're looking at with this team? You're like, either I'm not sure how to win this matchup, or this is a matchup I think we can win and we need to attack it from the Bears perspective.
Yeah. So I think everyone is going to right away circle Nick Bosa versus the Bears rookie 5th round pick left tackle Braxton Jones, because you'd instantly see.
I had a big red circle around that one already. We were going to get to that for sure.
Yeah, obviously, on paper, 5th round pick Nick Bosa, it's a mismatch. There's no denying that. But I don't think, depending on what happens with the Bears health wise, which they're still determining what this offensive line is going to look like, because the man they signed to play center, Lucas Patrick, as a free agent, broke his thumb early in training camp or had some kind of fracture in there and had surgery and is back at practice, but he's wearing a cast on his snapping hand. And so they're not sure, is he going to play center and try and snap with a cast? Do they just put him on the bench? Do they put him in at right guard and put Tevin Jenkins on the bench? And I think if Lucas Patrick is not your starting center, then the Bears' weaker spot on the offensive line is going to be that center spot. Like, yes, again, Braxton Jones and Nick Bosa is a mismatch for sure. No denying that. But if I'm looking at where my weakest link is that I'm most concerned about it in general, it would be Sam Mustipher filling in as the backup center. He's not strong. He can move a little bit, but he's not even that athletic. And I don't mean to just totally crap on the guy, but I see Javon Kinlaw and Eric Armstead and those guys across from him on the interior. And I feel like that interior pass rush right in Justin Fields' face can be extremely disruptive, to where, not that he's going to escape Nick Bosa at all times, but at least that edge pressure he can run away from or run around from and not have it be as much in his face disruption. And I do like Braxton Jones as a rookie offensive lineman that is going to play better than I think people will think, just purely because he's a rookie 5th round pick. He beat out Riley Reif. I mean, they signed the veteran Riley Reif to start, and Braxton Jones never gave up his starting job, and they kicked Riley Reif to the bench and said, screw it, we're rolling with Braxton Jones. Again, I'm trying to be careful to say Bosa is going to win that matchup, but I'm more concerned about that center if it's not Lucas Patrick. And even if it is Lucas Patrick with a cast, there's still going to be some concern there on that pressure right up front for the Bears offensive line trying to protect Justin Fields. What are you seeing on the 49ers side?
Yeah, looking at the 49ers defense against the Bears offense, that was obviously a big one, is Nick Bosa, and are they just going to be chipping him all day? And if that's the case, can the rest of the line win if they're putting too much of an emphasis on that? Or are the Bears going to kind of go max protect, or try to have a running back on the inside to maybe help out there, and then have a chip on Bosa before Cole Kmet goes out into a pass route or something like that. So that's going to be something to look out for sure, because you don't want to, you don't want to just say, hey, 5th round rookie, here we go, welcome to the NFL, because he's going to see a ton of talent, right? I mean, he's going to see Rashawn Gary, and he's going to see Preston Smith, and he's going to see
Aiden Hutchinson.
Aiden Hutchinson and Donnell Hunter, and I mean, just the list goes on and on. There's like every team's got a freak at defensive end. So have fun, rookie, right? And I love what I've seen from Braxton Jones, by the way. It was a great pick by the Bears. So you just need him to hold his head above water, but I think it's too much to ask to not help him out as much as you possibly can, and just make sure you try not to make that a clear L for your football team every week, or you're going to be in trouble until he's ready to go be out there on an island by himself. But what I'm really looking for is the changes in this Bears offense. And I expect a whole bunch more, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lorin, I expect a whole bunch more play action from the Bears offense this season. And if I'm not mistaken, they were 31 or 32 in the league last year in play action. And of course, the offense this year is all built around play action. So some easier looks for Justin Fields, no doubt, but can they take advantage of Jimmy Ward missing in the secondary? And can they suck up that second level, hold the defensive line for a second with some play action, suck up the linebackers to where he can do some damage over the middle of the field and maybe take advantage of the guys that are out there in the deep middle? So that's one of the matchups I'm definitely going to be looking for from the 49ers defense against the Bears offense.
Anything from you, Eric? Any matchups stand out on your end?
I mean, really you guys kind of touched on it, the defensive line or the 49ers defensive line against the Chicago Bears offensive line. When you look at last year, that was an area where clearly you could see, okay, the Bears need to improve on that. And I think the big question now is, you see kind of glimpses of it in preseason, but can it hold up against the Nick Bosa, the Eric Armsteads, the Javon Kinlaws, the Ebucam, the Drake Jackson, the Charles Omenihu? I mean, the 49ers just have so many pass rushers. It's just a huge strength of their team. How will they balance that out? Now, last year, one thing I did notice with what the 49ers did against the Chicago Bears, and I thought it was a mistake, or at least it proved to be a mistake, all they did was just rush 4. I think they just thought, hey, this is a poor offensive line. We're just going to beat up on them by rushing 4, and the quarterback's going to be in a panic. Well, that didn't happen. And Justin Fields, I thought, had probably his best game of the season. So will the 49ers bring a little bit more pressure, right? Will they send 5? Will they do more stunts and different things to potentially move Justin Fields off of his spot, or kind of make him second guess what he's seeing at the next level? So that's really the battle I want to see. What does DeMeco Ryans do this time differently than he did the season before?
I do want to add to that one other thing I'm going to be looking for with the Niners defense against the Bears offense is not only, potentially that revenge atmosphere for Justin Fields, is I do sense that there's a little bit of that with him for some teams that passed up on him, specifically the 49ers. But an ex-49er in Dante Pettis, if Justin Fields plays like he did in the last preseason game, and especially throws a touchdown pass to Dante Pettis, who's run out of town in San Francisco, 49ers fans are going to be losing their minds.
Yeah. Did he do the little cat thing? Remember before he licked his hand? He licked his paw like he was cleaning himself. He did that with the 49ers. Does he do any cat celebrations for the Chicago Bears?
I have not seen that yet, but maybe he breaks.
Do you know he's a cat person?
In San Francisco. Say that again.
Well, I shouldn't even say. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I recently got a couple cats, so I guess technically I'm kind of a cat person as well now. But he's like a big time cat person. I've always been a dog person, big dog person as well. Yeah. But I got 2 cats now, and Dante Pettis was kind of made fun of a little bit by the 49ers community for being a legit cat person. Hence the cat celebration after he scored a touchdown one time and was cleaning himself. So have you seen anything like that from Dante Pettis?
Yeah, I want to add to that too, because it's so funny, because post-draft and everyone's always like, this guy's got that dog in him. And if you're ever, and by the way, anybody out there who's going to be an NFL draft prospect, if you get asked that question at the combine, I don't care if you're a cat person, tell them you're a dog person. That's the answer they want to hear, right? And so that was like, and his attitude was like that. They like Dante Pettis didn't have that dog in him. And in fact, we should bring back that meme, where they show the X-ray and there's a dog inside someone's body. We should do that, but for Dante Pettis, so when he does score a touchdown, but he has a cat in him. That I think
they probably already have it out there.
Has got the cat in him. But yeah, anyway. I'm sorry if I interrupted you there, Lorin, but I want to go to the other side of the ball really quick here before we get to our predictions and just what to expect from a new Bears defense. And Eberflus, I know, is been a different defensive coordinator that runs a little bit of the cover 2, the Tampa 2 style defense, but he has a lot of, multiple looks as well. But when I think about when you're playing against the 49ers and, guys like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, I think, that Tampa 2, that cover 2 playing a lot of zones, probably not the worst look to give the 49ers, and try to make Trey Lance make those whole shot throws and see if he has that accuracy and that ability. Do you see it going that way on defense with what Eberflus is going to throw out there against the 49ers and Trey Lance?
Yeah, definitely. They like to do a lot of that too high shell, and they'll rotate in and sometimes out of it, but definitely on first and second down. Third downs they'll go into a lot more like single deep man coverage and some cover 3 on the outside. But the Bears are particularly going to be betting on their speed that they have defensively. That your nickel linebackers, which even especially in Eberflus's defense, they just don't go into base much at all if they can avoid it. So it's going to be Nick Morrow and Roquan Smith, 2 of the faster linebackers in the NFL, and they've been playing their rookie Kyler Gordon as a primarily a slot quarterback. So they really feel like they can stick with guys across the middle of the field, and then they're just kind of banking on Jalen Johnson on one side on the outside, and probably Kindle Vildor still as the outside cornerback on this side. And that's where I'm most concerned about things sort of breaking down for this Bears defense. But Eberflus's scheme is a lot more simplified for these guys. The Fangio defense, which 49ers fans I'm sure are well familiar with, it asks the defensive backs to read so much more and to think so much more on the field. And obviously you can disguise things more effectively and throw some different things at quarterbacks that way, but maybe guys can't play as fast. And that idea is that maybe you take a guy like Kindle Vildor, who struggled in the previous scheme, simplify things for him, and also bring in a rookie and make things a little bit more easy for him. They could just keep eyes in the backfield, eyes on the quarterback, and then attack the ball when it's in the air. That maybe that can bring things up a little bit and also help get Eddie Jackson back toward where Eddie Jackson was at his best, but easier said than done.
Real quick, and I might have missed it, and you can answer it just, with a quick yes or no, but is Roquan Smith playing?
Yes. So he ended his holdout. Negotiations are over, but he's good to go. He should be great to go.
Okay.
And he'll have his eyes, no doubt, if they're playing a lot of zone, on young Trey Lance if he tries to get on the move. So that'll be fun to see Roquan Smith trying to run down Trey Lance if he is on the move and trying to scamper around and make plays with his legs. Okay, guys, we're at that portion of the podcast. Next, we've got to make some predictions. 49ers at Bears, week 1. Who's going to come out on top in this one? I do once again want to thank everybody out there for making Locked On 49ers and Locked On Bears your first listens every day. Now, for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, including all of us here, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Croc, I'm going to go to you since we're the visitors here, technically. 49ers at Chicago Bears. And real quick, Lorin, before I make my prediction, I gotta go to you, and you can do your best meteorologist. What are we looking for with the weather? I've seen there's maybe some rain, maybe 75 degrees and rainy. Is that what it's still looking like on Sunday at Soldier Field?
Yeah, that's what I've seen, but we've definitely had a summer of, you don't know that it's going to rain until you get real close to it raining. So I'm anticipating it's not going to be anything too disruptive. And I will say the Bears just put in a brand new grass, a new style of grass that they've never had at Soldier Field before. That's supposed to be a little bit slicker, a little bit faster to allow them to play quicker and hopefully have less of the slips and bruises that they've had even already in the preseason. So fingers crossed there.
All right, Croc, as a visitor and someone who might be in the building watching this Bears and 49ers matchup, you're going to be there? Did you get those tickets?
Oh, man, shout out. Oh, man, I got to shout him out. Hold on 1 second. 1 second.
Or did you get yourself a credential? That's the way you should have gone.
Nah, I didn't. I did not get a credential, but shout out to Thomas Payne, man. Thomas Payne came through, said, Croc, we're coming from San Jose. We got an extra ticket. Here you go. Didn't charge me anything. He's a listener of Locked On. He said he didn't want anything. He just said, thank you for all the great work on Locked On 49ers. So shout out to Thomas Payne, man. He came through with the ticket.
Dang, that's some love right there. That's fantastic.
That is
stuff.
love. That is love. I appreciate it, Thomas.
Croc, what do you think you're going to see on Sunday? 49ers or Bears victory in week 1?
This is a tough one, right? Because, obviously 49er fans, super confident heading into this game. And you look at that and say, oh, man, 49ers, they're just better than the Bears. And I would say on paper, the 49ers do have a better roster. But we've seen a lot of weird things happen week 1. And you are taking on a team that has an entirely new coaching staff. You don't know exactly what they're going to try to give you from their philosophy. Maybe you can dig and see, okay, what is Eberflus? What does he like to do and whatnot? Maybe you have an idea, but maybe he hasn't had a quarterback quite like Justin Fields. So he's dialing up some different things. I would say, even then, I have to give the edge to the 49ers for a couple reasons. One, they just have more better players just across the board. And that's tough to overcome. So for Chicago to win, they just need a lot of bad to happen, a lot of bad from Trey Lance, a lot of bad from the offensive line, a lot of bad from the defense. I don't quite see that happen, but again, I'm not knocking the Bears. I think that they are going to sneak up on some people. I think they're going to be very competitive, and they look to be very well coached. I'm intrigued to see how it all plays out. But when you look at the weapons, I like Cole Kmet. I like Darnell Mooney. I love Justin Fields, and I think those three right there are dynamic. Are they enough to really take on an entire 49ers roster? And I think that's where things get a little difficult. So even with the weather and hopefully the more it rains, I think that kind of benefits the 49ers, who all they want to do is run the ball and play great defense anyways. I give the edge to the 49ers. If I had to guess, I say the 49ers win 17-23.
All right, Lorin, it is a 7-point line right now that the 49ers are favored on the road. You kind of like those home dogs if you're a bettor. Is this where the Bears come out and sneak attack somebody who's coming in and thinking they're the better football team on Sunday?
Maybe when it comes to a 7-point spread, but I would not pick the Chicago Bears straight up. And I think that's, from there, it's anybody's guess. But no, I agree with you, Croc, that there's a very clear talent deficiency between these two teams. And I think
real quick, Lorin, and sorry for cutting you off. It's a talent deficiency based on what we know, right? Sure. But there is a chance that the Chicago Bears have some guys that rise to being heroes. And the 49ers were in this situation, just a couple years ago, 2019. Nobody expected the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. Next thing you know, they start the season 8-0, right? So there is kind of this odd chance that all of a sudden the Bears can just have this sneak attack, and all of a sudden guys that you think were just question marks and you're trying to figure out the center position, and all these other guys got these rookies here and there. Maybe they just play their best football ever and can beat the 49ers. But yeah, there is a talent difference between the two teams.
And like you said, weird things happen in week 1 every season where really bad teams will beat really good teams. When the season's all said and done, you look back and say, how did that team beat that team in week 1? Because weird things happen. So you never say never, but I think it would take some a couple of Trey Lance interceptions or a fumble or something like that, and the Bears having to play kind of a low scoring, kind of tough, slob it out, back and forth, punch in your mouth type football game. And it would take it'd be like a 17-14 kind of thing if they were to somehow pull off the upset. There's not a pop. I don't see a range here where somehow the Bears just come out and just light it up and the 49ers are just unable to prepare for it. But no, I think for sure 49ers win. I don't think it'll be anything too crazily one-sided, but something like a 24-14 or a 24-17 type thing feels to me about where
and real quick, one more thing on that. Last season, I mean, the 49ers are going in as the heavy favorites, and I believe they ended up covering the spread. But early on, not even early on, late in that game, I think heading into the fourth quarter, the Bears were up. I think they were either tied or up by 1 point. So this is a Bears team that probably has confidence looking back to 2021 saying, hey, look, we played those guys tough. And that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. And if I'm them, I'm looking at it dude, it's a couple plays from Deebo Samuel. That's how they ended up really getting ahead there with a 83-yard screen that Deebo took to the house on 3rd and 20 and a deep ball right before the half. So, hey, if we don't get those plays, maybe this outcome is a lot different. If I'm Bears players, and obviously you got to play your best ball, I'm looking at that as hey, these guys are beatable.
And on paper, the Bears are undermanned, and we're going 3 for 3 here. I definitely got to pick the 49ers. I think the Bears can keep this close, especially early. And I look at Justin Fields and his development into year 2. If he is that guy, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And if you have a better quarterback, you have a better head coach, you have better schemes on offense and defense, all of a sudden, that is a huge difference in a football team that played the Niners really tough last year. So I think this is a game that could start out, and I talked about how 49ers fans are going to get real nervous at about halftime if they're not comfortably in the lead and Trey Lance isn't playing amazing. I think this could be a slow start for the 49ers, and maybe because of all that talent, they do figure out what the Bears are doing in the second half and come back and win that football game. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if at least at halftime this game is a little bit closer than a lot of people expect. But I think you do have to, just on paper, look at these two teams and say that the 49ers have an advantage and pick San Francisco to start the season 1-0. Okay, guys, just to recap a little bit of what we're talking about here with this matchup. Clearly, key number 1 with the 49ers at the Chicago Bears in week 1 is the 2 young quarterbacks, the second-year quarterbacks, the number 3 pick in the draft and the number 11 pick in the draft that is famously not the number 3 pick in the draft. I mean, that's such a great storyline. Both these guys are so talented. I think they both have their heads screwed on well, and I think they're both going to be really good quarterbacks in the NFL. Is maybe Justin Fields, now that he got kind of beat up and he had that 8-sack game as a rookie and then came out of it okay and looked better towards the end. Was it 9 sacks?
Yeah, it was 9.
Oh my God. 9. It was like 1 net yard, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. it's pretty amazing.
That's
like,
the tough thing too when you look at Trey Lance and his inexperience. I'm always saying, like, dude, there's gonna be ups and downs. And you look at Justin Fields, and I'd assume Justin Fields is better for the ups and downs that he took as a rookie.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. He's been through that and he came out of it okay. And he actually played really well down the stretch and actually had some top 10 fantasy performances as a quarterback, and he can run. We've seen that speed against the 49ers last year. He's supremely accurate with his passes, which I think I love, and something that you can't teach. So I'm excited for that. And Trey Lance is obviously super talented on the other side, has a ton of weapons to go to, and he has Kyle Shanahan calling the plays for him. So, it's worth even if you think 49ers Bears week 1 isn't a marquee matchup, this is worth the price of admission just to see Trey Lance and Justin Fields in year 2, see some of these young quarterbacks taking the next step, see if they are the future of the league as some of these other quarterbacks age out. And for some reason, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and these guys aren't going away. But at some point, those guys are going to retire. And, you got Joe Burrow, you got Patrick Mahomes, obviously, you've got Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. But in the NFC, who are going to be the next great quarterbacks now? And I think Trey Lance and Justin Fields have a really good opportunity to be those guys. So that's what's going to be fun to watch all season long, even if the Bears aren't winning a ton of games this year.
And I think both teams are coming to this game saying, ideally, we want to run the football and put as little pressure on our quarterback as possible. I mean, both of these groups want to run the ball and play defense. And it's going to be hard for both teams to do that effectively for 4 quarters, right? Like eventually someone's going to get ahead, and which is going to be have to be the first team that has to pass, which is going to be the first team that has to get one-dimensional. And then when you do get one-dimensional, which young quarterback can overcome that can be in a more predictable offensive position and have more of that pressure on their shoulders, and can they overcome that and push their team over the top? I tend to think that the 49ers will be more inclined to be able to stay in the offense they want to be in. And then it's on Justin Fields to try and be the hero. And can his receivers pick up and kind of help carry him to where he needs to go there? Can the offensive line do enough for him? And I think those are questions that are going to be longer term answers here. And certainly we won't get definitive answers on a lot of this Bears team just from that first game this season.
Croc, I got to ask you before we go here, in the first step to Nick Bosa's Defensive Player of the Year award this year, how many sacks does he come home with on Sunday?
He's prime. I mean, this is the best version of Nick Bosa we've heard about, we've seen. I mean, dude has like 2% body fat. And if you have question marks at any of your tackle spots, I mean, this is the wrong guy to go up against right now. And I think there's some disrespect that he's feeling by getting 0 votes for Comeback Player of the Year last season. I would hate to go up against Nick Bosa right now. 3 sacks for him. Now, maybe the rest of the line gets 0 sacks, but Nick Bosa is going to get his.
And you said questions at the offensive tackle positions. How about questions at both offensive tackle positions? It should go very well.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you want to chip me on this side. Well, how many tight ends are you going to put in the game? Because I'm going to go over to this side too. So, it's going to be fun to see how the 49ers rotate.
Both side every play. Wherever he is, make sure the tight end's over there.
just put Darnell Mooney as far out towards the sideline as you can. Put 3 tight ends in the game, max protect everybody, and see if you can pop one over the top.
Yeah.
There's your game plan right there.
There you go. That's a fantastic game plan from Brian Peacock. I don't think Luke Getsy's going to be listening to that one. All right, it's going to be a fantastic one. I am so pumped for the 2022 season and the kickoff Sunday when the San Francisco 49ers visit the Chicago Bears. Always a fun time chatting with you, Lorin, and I wish you all the luck and an exciting 2022 season ahead. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On 49ers and Locked On Bears your first listens, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.